didn't give Mike any warning that we're starting the show because, oh my goodness, was this a heart-wrencher, Mike? I haven't cried this many times in a movie in a while, and it was mostly because I just let myself be washed away in the emotions. But I sobbed a good couple times reviewing this movie. Obviously, Wolverine Part 2.
There's a Part 2 to Wolverine?
I don't know. I don't know what the next Wolverine movie we're watching is, but that's not the one I sobbed to, because you know me, I'm a schmuck for good Pixar film. What movie did we watch this week, Mike?
It's the opposite of Down, so I guess we watched Up. Fantastic Pixar movie that is beloved by many, and everyone, I think a lot of people remember from their childhood, at least our demographic, with a fantastic old man who is very grumpy and tired of life, and a young boy who's very innocent and just trying to get a badge.
And the coolest bird ever. Kevin,
the coolest bird ever. Remind me of a cassowary. If you've ever seen a cassowary, Nick, it is the most scary bird on Earth. It lives in Australia. It's got a blue head. It's got dinosaur legs, basically, and it will destroy you. But Kevin's not that ferocious, I'd say. He's just more... he's more talk than action, I'd say.
All right, well, for those of you who don't know, Up. This is a spoilered review. If you have not seen Up, first off, go get a life. Secondly, go watch this movie before finishing this movie review, because Up is one of the best movies in Pixar's lineup. It's definitely top 5, possibly top 3, depending on how emotional I want to be in the moment. Mike, what did you think of this?
I thought it was a great movie. Definitely brought me to tears initially. I kept on telling myself, don't cry, Michael, don't cry, Michael. And then, of course, was it maybe 5 or 10 minutes into the movie, you just start pouring your tears out. Because it's probably the most amazing 10 minutes of a film. I mean, there's probably a lot of films that are like that. I'd say Endgame is kind of close to that in terms of just getting straight to the action, or a bunch of other movies. But this one is very much grabs you by the heart almost immediately, and then just starts crushing it, making you just retreat into yourself almost immediately. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably one of my favorite things about this movie is it's not afraid to just grab you and put you in this situation. It's not all right, now you just relax for a little bit. I mean, maybe it gives you some moments of brevity, but it's a lot of just... I don't know, just relatable situations, even though that Carl is in his 70s or 80s, and then Russell's I don't know, 8 or 9 or something like that. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know, as a 20-year-old, I can see a little bit of myself in both, which is fantastic, because that's how you get invested in characters. You kind of see a little bit of yourself in them. But yeah, I'd say out of 8, definitely a 7.
Ooh, 7, nice.
This is a really good movie, probably one of my favorite movies from Pixar ever. Just because, mainly the piano, we can get into that later, but I love the piano in this whole entire movie. It just conveys the emotion, the action, the scene, and everything, all just by the notes being played and the speed at which they're being played, I guess the tempo. And just phenomenal job. What do you think, Nick?
Okay, so Pixar's obviously always been top of the line of any franchise or content creation company, studio, that's the word I'm looking for, ever. Now, the 2009 Up is probably up there on 2 or 3 maybe of the top lists of Pixar movies for me. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 8, so I think this is one of the first times that we've agreed on our rating exactly. It is so good in so many ways. There are a couple things that could have been better, but I think if you dive deep into this movie, you get a lot out of it, and if you stay shallow with the movie, you just get an entertaining, hour and a half or hour and 47 minutes. So it's a very interesting movie to be able to watch, and you're right. The first 10 minutes of Up, if you don't cry during the first 10 minutes of Up, I'm sorry, but you're mostly robot. Like, those little captchas that they have on the internet, like, hey, click 4 stoplights, and, which one's the bicycle? That should just be, watch the first 10 minutes of Up, and if you cry, you're not a human, or you're human, and if you don't cry, then you're a robot. That should be the new captchas. I'll submit that to the captcha people. It is a heart-wrenching story. Obviously, it is the first 10 minutes is what like allows the rest of the movie to go. Mm-hmm. Like, we get so emotionally invested in these characters in such a short amount of time. Honestly, it's a really beautiful way to start a movie without dialogue, right? Like, a lot of times a movie will jump in, they'll have a narrator say, in the world in 2097 we have, and they got like 4 minutes of exposition and just to set you up for the world that you're about to enter in. And it kind of feels heavy-handed. But this love story, the Up love story, the classic Up love story, is timeless, wordless, and highly relatable.
I think Carl only says the word wow, I think once. Or, like, I think that's the only word he says in the first 10 minutes. Is just wow when Ellie leaves his window.
Yeah. You don't say too much. I like you. It's like, beautiful. Jeez. So definitely awesome beginning there. Anything you want to pick out specifically? I think most people know what we're talking about and probably would agree with most of our thoughts on the beginning here, because I think even the most skeptic people on the internet agree that the first 10 minutes of Up is amazing.
I forgot about the narrating at the very beginning. You're kind of saying the whole like, oh, in a world, blah, 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 for 5 minutes or whatever. They kind of do that at the very beginning of this, but it's like, maybe a minute, and it's not. It's not really like narrating like the main character. It's more of, it gives you context for the movie, which I guess is good. But in the end, they kind of just throw away the villain, so you don't really care about him too much. But they kind of build up this guy Charles Muntz as this larger than life character, very much like the 1940s and 50s type 30s. Of movie. Like, is it 30s? Kind of like World War II type of stuff, where it's like, from the front lines, we've got Johnny here. He is loading ammo boxes for the soldiers who are going off to protect our nation. Kind of like that type of stuff, but it's for Charles Muntz.
Newsreel. 1930s newsreel is how that opens. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And so you kind of have some of that, but it's with Charles Muntz, but then it kind of continues with Carl, which is fantastic as well, because Carl's walking home or wherever, he's jumping over stumps and rocks, and then
goes around Mount Everest.
Or I guess goes over Mount Everest.
Perfect.
Goes around.
So I guess you're right. Yes, I guess you're right. There is some of the classic dialogue, and I just get lost in the 10 minutes, the beginning 10 minutes, that I forget about the first minute, because I believe we have the alarm clock scene where he rides down the stairs in his little chair.
The thing that hooked me on this movie as a kid is that one trailer that they produced with just Carl going down with the Oh my!
I guess I didn't see that one.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, that's what hooked me on this movie, because I'm like, I know this song because, of course, it's some very silly classic song that kids have probably heard from their parents' movies or wherever. And you've got this dude who's riding down on some stairwell assistant thing that is probably the most coolest thing as a child. You're like, I want to ride that, but then you got some very old grumpy dude who doesn't love an old grumpy dude who's rolling down on a, I guess, power-assisted vehicle, transport, whatever it is. But
I think it's
some
stair stepper helper thingy. I don't know. I'm not an old person, so I don't know. I'm sorry to all of the old people listening to this who know exactly what we're talking about.
We don't discriminate to old people.
I don't know the name to it. No, we don't. Definitely. I'm just saying I don't know what it's called. I will someday. I'm sure when I have to have 2 or 3 installed in my house, but until then,
2 or 3.
I'll live in,
Jeez, Nick, you're living the high life when you're old.
No. I only have the one staircase. I want 2 or 3 just on each side, maybe 2 on one side and 1 on the other, just in case it stops halfway through. Because can you imagine if you couldn't actually walk up or down the steps, and like his little trick after it stopped of banging the armrest, didn't restart the motor, he'd be stuck there.
I mean,
That'd be
he
terrible.
proves later in the movie that he can walk around. He just doesn't want to walk up and down the stairs. I mean, it's kind of funny.
Yes,
He's very much
true.
different character from the beginning of the movie to the middle of the movie, right? The beginning of the movie, he's very much sedentary. Doesn't look like he's got much life in him after he's lost his wife and his house is kind of looking very dated and decrepit. But then, like, in the middle of the movie, you got him, like, climbing up cliffs and other things. So you're like, okay, how old is Carl really? He's not 90.
This is a big theory rolling around the internet, and we can go real deep on the lore of it, but lots of people think that this is all just happening in Carl's mind, and he actually went crazy. Have you heard that theory?
I haven't, but that sounds
contradictory.
very depressing. I kind of like more of the lightness of this movie. Yes, again, Pixar does it again with breaking physics, with a floating house on balloons in which people have calculated, physicists have calculated it, remedial engineers have calculated it. It's not possible with the amount of balloons that he's got, but it's still...
Don't most houses come pre-installed with a balloon hook inside the chimney?
How did he get that
was a
many
standard item.
helium tanks is my question. Like, where was he buying them from? How many did he have stored up? And, like, how do you get away with buying that much helium as an old guy?
Again, he went crazy, so it's all in his imagination. Anyway, he probably, since he had 40 plus years of experience as the balloon guy at the local adventure park or wherever they were, maybe he had, stashed a few. Or maybe he was really good friends with the owner of the... Also, how did he fill up all those balloons in one night? Also, that's a lot of strings.
Yeah.
Also, that doesn't make any sense.
The physics is gone.
But what's the
in
main
this movie,
conflict
that's okay.
of this movie? Yeah. Oh, there was never any physics in any Pixar movie.
The main
last I
conflict is
checked,
that
so
Russell needs to get his badge. I mean, that's part of it, though.
I was gonna say that is. I think it's mostly Carl needing to get the snipe caught out of underneath his porch and in his backyard. So, I think that was the main conflict of the movie. Yeah. So, basically, what has happened here is Carl has lived his life. His wife has passed, and their whole goal was to go to this Paradise Falls in South America, and they wanted to go their whole life, but life got in the way. Flat tires, trees, broken arms. Life gets in the way, and they never made it. And his wife dies before they can go, and he kind of becomes recluse and doesn't seem to go out much, and all the while the world is changing around him. We see that the house used to be in a nice little neighborhood. In the 1913 is what the ambulance had on the front, so it was a while ago. And so the idea, though, that you have like all the world changing around Carl's house. You have the skyscraper being built, and it's like literally just Carl's property is the one residential area in the entire block, and it just zooms out to a huge construction zone, and you can tell Carl is not letting go, and I think that's the big theme of this movie. And I've watched this movie dozens and dozens of times, and it's never struck me that this is a story about letting go, and it's kind of fitting because I've been having an interior monologue with myself about some of my original goals and how I'm either meeting those or not meeting those, or how much do I change my goals, and how do I, as a person who's growing into adulthood, I had all these goals and ideas. I've achieved some of them in full the way I thought they would, and they weren't as rewarding as I thought it would be. I've achieved other ones in ways that I didn't think I would achieve them. And is that as rewarding as I wanted it to be? And I have yet to achieve other goals, and I've also don't have the desire to achieve different goals. And it's like this is kind of an interesting movie to watch, because this whole movie is around Carl letting go of his stuff, his emotional baggage, and also his dreams, his hopes, his dreams. And it was really, really fun to watch it with that lens on. But anyway, so there's this big construction scene. It's quite obvious that the big boss of the big construction scene wants to buy Carl's house. Carl does not want to sell. He said he could have it over his dead body, which is another good piece of evidence that Carl has actually gone crazy. But we'll stick with reality for the moment. Unfortunately, a small accident occurs, and Carl hurts an employee, not intentionally, but out of anger, and Carl ends up in a courthouse. Very sad.
You were
What's the
walking
most
through this
logical
whole movie
response
right
to this,
now,
Mike?
Nick. I was gonna add on the building of buildings, I guess the urbanization type of stuff around Carl's house reminds me of my grandparents' house because they grew up here in the Bay Area, and my grandma grew up here when the roads were all dirt here in Silicon Valley.
Wow, that's cool.
And her dad was the garbage guy. There wasn't a garbage industry, right? You didn't have garbage trucks rolling around at that time because cars weren't really around. Model T wasn't even around. My grandma remembers when her dad bought the Model T. He had a horse and a cart. And around, was it like the 30s or 40s, they finally bought their own house, my grandma and my grandpa. And seeing it now, it's pretty interesting. Just seeing the house inside it. Carl's house reminds me of my grandparents' house in regards to just how dated and old and dusty it is. And how my grandparents used to try to keep it kind of like how it was and kind of dusting stuff off a little bit, vacuuming. But of course, like, it's still very old and dusty. But like with everything kind of building around it, like you had the San Jose International Airport building off not too far. I mean, you have a whole bunch of other skyscrapers building nearby, and you just have this little house that my grandparents got built and lived in.
Wow.
And it's very much like Carl and Ellie's house. And so I very much, when I see that scene, it's like, wow, this is very true. This is what happened with many people, is that it was very much like a little country road type of dwelling. And then it's turned into some cityscape around them, which is astounding to me. But yeah, that scene definitely got me, and it didn't really get me in terms of emotions, but I definitely related to it because my grandparents. But
That's a really special story, Mike.
Yeah,
That's
some of the
awesome.
scenes though in this very first part, very hilarious. I think they hit the nail on the head in terms of comedy in a lot of this. Kind of like with was it the guy who voices Ham from Toy Story is in this, where he's like, "Hello, Mr. Fredrickson."
What? No way.
Yeah, you don't remember? So Carl goes out to get the mail, I think, and then the construction workers see him, and they're like, "Hey, how are you doing? You gonna sell your house?" And he's like, "Nope."
Yeah.
The
big
construction
guy.
worker's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
"Hey,
yeah.
my boss is gonna buy your house or whatever."
Double his last offer. Yeah.
That's Ham from Toy Story.
Oh,
It's pretty funny.
Interesting. And I think whoever voiced Ham also is like a head schmuck at Pixar who's like in all of them, right? Is that the guy?
Possibly, yeah. I think he's voiced a lot of characters in the Pixar lineup, but I think this is a pretty good voice for that character as well. But stuff like that, or kind of the very unfortunate scene where the mailbox starts getting twisted and broken from the construction equipment, and then the construction guy is trying to help out. And he's being he's a very aggressive Canadian in a way. He's very much like, "I'm going to fix this for you. Let me fix it for you."
No, we'll fix it for you.
Yeah, and Carl's like, "No, this is mine. Don't touch it." And gets very frustrated and hits him over the head, which very not nice of Carl, but
no.
Very, very, very aggressive on the other guy in terms of niceness, I'd say.
Yeah. He was being an aggressive, nice person. That's a
Very
good way to
aggressive.
put it.
But then, like, the scene right after this, like, it's very, very sad. He goes to court, and it turns out, okay, you're going to Shady Pines or whatever it is, the old folks' home.
Yep.
And then you get the very funny scene, like, not a minute after, of, like, the knock on the door. Carl opens the door, and a nice healthcare worker. "Hello, Mr. Fredrickson," or "Good morning, Mr. Fredrickson." Are you ready to go?
Are you ready to go? Nope. I'm gonna take this
say
to the
goodbye.
car. I'm gonna say goodbye to the old place one more time. You're probably gonna go to the bathroom for the 80th time.
I mean, like, it's very depressing scene, right? You got urbanization type of, like, city skyscrapers being built around this guy's house who doesn't want to let go. And then he gets caught up in some legal battle, and then he's being shipped off to an old folks' home. But then it's just more comedy in this, which I love, is that this movie is not afraid to expose you to both things within like a very short time span. It's not like, all right, we're going to be sad for a while, we're going to be solemn, we're going to be very gray and dark and very not monotone, but very, I guess, very sad themes, right? And then it's not like that. It's very much like, yeah, this is sad, but this is driving the plot forward. Here's more comedy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
I think before we take off, literally and figuratively, we should take a moment to just explain Russell. Russell's character is probably one of the most important characters. I'd say right after Carl and Ellie, it's probably Russell being the third most important character of this movie. Who is Russell?
Not Kevin. I would think Kevin's the most important one, but I mean,
okay, obviously Kevin is the most important person, but I guess. But
Russell's a typical Boy Scout, right? He wants to get all his patches. He wants to accomplish
Wilderness
something.
Explorer.
Was it kaka rar?
Yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know. Like, Pixar was really good at writing his character, because it wasn't like a very annoying kid who you're just like, I hate this kid. What's going on? He's very likable and very innocent. He's got a very.
That's a good way to put it.
His character is fantastic in terms of like his family surroundings, right? They're not very much like, oh yeah, he's got a typical mom and dad who are just letting him do his own thing. It's very much they address it in the movie later by saying, I forget what his dad's name or whatever, but it's like,
my dad's not really around much.
Yeah, or it's just like that person. Oh, it was why don't you have this person do it? It's like, that's not my dad or that's not my mom. It's like,
yeah.
We're going to bed now.
Yep.
Carl's just like,
Carl realized he's talking about feelings. End the conversation.
Nope, done.
Done.
But yeah, Russell is a very cool character. I didn't really vibe with him too much when I initially watched this movie, but watching it now as a 25, 26-year-old or wherever I am, I forgot my age already. I'm getting old now.
Well, make sure you're not getting sent off to Shady Oaks.
Yeah, but I don't know. He's a very nice brevity character, very much like the personification of the main audience for this movie, children, right? Children want to go on this great adventure. They have these very same goals of collecting things like badges or patches or other things or sticks.
And we see that Carl has never lost that, collector's piece of him. Even as he gets ready to go outside to go sit on the porch and watch the construction, he puts on his little grape soda pin, and that's very important to him. And we see an old man who is kind of in his turtle shell at the beginning, but in the heart he's still a child. He still is seeking that adventure that he was never able to have with his wife. That was very, very funny. And you're totally right about him being innocent. Like it's a lot of fun. Like, he's obviously played as the comic relief quite a bit, but I think Russell's character is there to show Carl that there's another way. It's probably the best way to put it. Russell's character is there to show Carl that there is another better way to live. And it's very, very fun and well-written character all around. So instead of dwelling on one character for the whole movie, we need to get to the rising action.
Stole the words
Jokes.
out of Pixar's actual rising action of the house rising. The house rises. Oh wait, do you know that joke? Probably not. Do you know Bane?
No, I don't.
Oh no.
No, I don't. I don't know Bane.
Maybe
That's
we'll
Batman,
review Batman
right?
at some point. Yeah, he has a famous line in the third Batman series of "The fire rises," but no, the house rises.
The house does rise, and it rises on about 20,000 colorful animated Pixar balloons, which, as you were mentioning earlier, some actual physicists and actual smart people calculated it would be over 1 million helium balloons that would be required to lift this house. So, sorry, Carl, but your physics doesn't add up. You're just a couple factors short.
I mean, it's not the first time that Pixar's created a sin in terms of physics. This is very much way
A
out.
movie sin?
This isn't
Should
cinema
we?
sins.
Okay. All right, fine.
We're not going that route. There's already a YouTube channel for that. Shout out to those guys, I guess. But yeah, no, I mean, this is a
because
pretty.
their growth is definitely derived by our start outs.
This is a beautiful scene, though, right? They could have just been like, okay, the house is in the air, we're done. Instead, they kind of show the reflections of, or the silhouette of the house floating along the cityscape, right? You've got the scene that's fantastic where you got the kid playing in the skyscraper apartment building thing, and then you have just multicolor all over the floor, and the kid's just like, what's going on? And then you get a bunch of other stuff, just like the house floating over people, and they're just like, what?
What's going on?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then somehow
that is.
Where are they, Nick?
We need.
I'm very confused on where they are because it seems like
I think they're in Tri-City.
Tri-City?
Yeah, so
they get to South
in the
America
United
really
States.
quickly.
Yeah, again, Carl is actually crazy, and this is all his figment of his imagination. But yes,
Why are you ruining
besides
this
that
movie?
major plot hole. Believe me, I was ruined by this movie about a year and a half ago, and I haven't been able to shake it since. So, poor Carl. I believe there's a huge Pixar theory that goes into like deep family trees of the inside out family. That's the emotions. The Inside Out family. Mm-hmm. That's the name of the movie, right?
Inside Out, yeah.
Inside Out. Inside Out. Okay, cool. I thought I was going crazy there for a second. Inside Out and Toy Story. Andy's family. I'm sorry, I'm having a brain fart right now. There's a theory out there that Carl and Ellie are related to those two other families, and it's all created in this big web that all connects and it all revolves around a postcard. Very interesting theory. You should all go check it out.
They have to be related, and they have to be some branch, right? Because they never had a kid, so that means they never produced.
They didn't. So
Ellie,
according to the director of Up and Inside Out, Carl had a romantic interest before Ellie, and her name is Emma Jean. And Emma Jean wrote a postcard to Carl and Ellie. It's in the movie. It's in the flip book, and it says, "I sure hope you guys are doing well and fine." Anyway, it's a deep rabbit hole. This is the deepest. I think this is the deepest rabbit hole you can go in Pixar. I don't even know how we got on it. It's so deep. How did we get into this rabbit hole, Mike? Where are they? Oh, they're in Tri-County. Because that's where Andy and his family lives. Tri-City. Tri-City?
I mean,
Tri-City or
I've heard of the Tri-City area.
Wherever Andy lives.
But
Tri-City area. You're right. Al's Toy Barn in the Tri-City area.
That's right.
Yep, so that's where they are. Fictional Pixar city. But, yep, they... I think that we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the music at this point. I know that the music is kind of what's carried the emotional first 10 minutes of this movie, and it's obviously going to carry major story beats throughout. But the Pixar theme of the that's used throughout the movie in different pitches and tempos and frequencies to make it either seem happy, sad, melancholy, excited, adventurous, depressed. Like it's such a simple melody that they're able that I believe it's was it Thomas Newman who scored this? Anyway, whoever scored this,
Michael Giacchino.
Giacchino?
Yeah.
No, Michael Giacchino. Oh my goodness, I love Michael Giacchino. All right, so this is a Michael Giacchino masterpiece. We're gonna bump this all up a level. Michael Giacchino.
My goodness.
Yeah,
it's like a simple melody on the piano that anyone can replicate at home if you have a piano, but then they carry it so many different ways, whether it's slow or fast in terms of tempo, or they carry it to different instruments, right? So like at the very beginning it's very much piano that is light and sometimes grand at points, but then when Ellie passes away it's very much slow and melancholy and hangs on to notes a little bit at points.
Yeah.
But then you get to like the rising house, right? Where the house goes up. And you get not piano, but you get strings. You get, I think, violins,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is fantastic use because it's still the same song, probably the same tempo as the very beginning of the movie, but it's just with a different instrument, which just conveys what's going on, right? We already kind of know what the theme is from the beginning, or at least the theme song. But then they kind of just are like, okay, well, we're flying now, so what is the light? Or what's a light instrument? A violin or a string instrument. And they go with that. It's like, wow. Like, just another layer of thought that I think is amazing with this movie is just the focus on instruments that they use at specific moments in the story and the tempo at which they interject it with, I guess, or inject it with, I guess. They basically just put it at.
You know, one of these days when we don't have any more movies to review,
That's
once
impossible.
we've watched all of the movies in existence, we're going to have to find Randy and get him to do an entire audio analysis of some of the best Pixar songs out there. And I think this will definitely hit the top of the list. So I think that'll be a fun idea to do one day. Yeah, so this song definitely carries a lot of the movie, and a good melody can be used to hang emotions on and allow, you know, the sad song, the sad melody being played during a sad moment. And then later in the movie, you can reference that scene without doing any visuals, just by playing that melody again, because the audience has already heard that. And I think they played this off to a T perfectly, but you're right, it's about the instruments and the tempo. And they switch all this up because when we're having this adventurous, you know, strings and uplifting and it's floating up, we hear that again at the end, at the climax, when, you know, they're having that big battle. It's the same tempo, it's the same, it's the same instrument and the same melody still. And so, anyway, beautiful. Michael Giacchino, bravo, good job. You rival John Williams as my favorite composer. And yes, I said that out loud.
Is it just
Sorry,
for this
John
very
Williams.
specific movie where they are very masterful
no,
with the music?
I mean, he's if you know the soundtrack and it wasn't written by John Williams, it was written by Michael Giacchino. I would say 8 times out of 10. If given those parameters, it was written by Michael Giacchino. He's a very amazing guy. Anyway, so we get to the out of the city. He somehow doesn't crash into any of these big skyscrapers at all, and just gloriously floats away into the countryside. And then we see probably what my favorite scene in the entire movie as a kid, which just got me laughing so hard. We get about 30 seconds of peace and quiet as Carl settles down into his nice big easy chair. We hear the slow wind blowing and rustling and...
Rustling?
Yeah, see what I did there? See what I did there? I didn't even mean to, but I did it. It was pretty cool. It was a wind rustling, and we have this tranquil blue sky behind him. It's obvious that he's completely alone. And then the door knocks. And every time I watch this movie, I'm like, this would be really funny if he just opened up his eyes and we started right back like Groundhog Day at, hi, Mr. Frankshirton, how are you having a good day today?
Oh, no.
Today's the day to go to Shady Oaks. I know.
Shady Oaks, not Shady... What was I thinking? Shady Pines. Yeah, it's Shady Oaks.
Shady Pines, same thing. Shady something.
Oak, pine, birch.
Same difference.
We could just go through all the trees.
So, who was at the door? Was it the pizza man?
It was the pizza man. He's like, hey, here's your pepperoni pizza, good sir. And Carl said, thank you. And then the pizza man walked off the porch. No, it was Russell. And, of course, another funny moment from the trailer, which you kind of get spoiled by trailers a lot in terms of a lot of the funny moments or rising action in the movie. But this one's still pretty funny with just Russell being like, could you let me in? And then Carl just being like, no, and then closing the door. Just fantastic, like.
And it lingers. It lingers on Russell for a second. Like he's like, now what?
You're just stuck there. You're just stuck there for however long that you're stuck on this man's floating house, which I would think if he's going from like the middle of the United States to somewhere in South Africa, I think central South Africa or South Africa. Jeez, South America. It's like America, but south. In the words of Ellie.
South. It is.
But that'd be a long ride. But yeah.
Somehow it all happens in one big thunderstorm. So yeah, Carl allows Russell into the house finally, and Russell immediately starts looking at the cool floating house because, again, Russell is the innocence of the movie, right? So he doesn't understand, like, holy crap, we're at 10,000 feet, and if, like, the floor cracks, then I'm falling, like, to my death. And there's none of that fear. It's just all wondrous, childlike exploration. And that in and of itself is pretty cool. But then we have him getting out his GPS.
Yeah,
and he's like,
oh, good.
No worries. We'll be completely safe as long as I have my GPS. It'll do anything.
He reminds me a lot like Wally as well. Wally has the same qualities as Russell, just very much wonderment of what's going on and what objects that he has in front of him, and just keeps on going on the adventure, right? Very much along for the ride, even though I think a lot of the lines that they have at this moment are fantastic as well, where it's just like, I'm going to have to take a whole bunch of buses to get back home. Or Carl offering to pay for his bus fare, and Russell's like, nah, I got a bus pass, I guess. I'll be good. Or the dream sequence of Russell being lowered down to the skyscrapers, which I forgot. I thought this was an actual like thing in the movie. I'm like, how'd they get him back up? Also, Carl's really strong again somehow, or like, how does he have that much strength? And of course, Russell drops, and it's like, oh, well, that's not happening.
That was definitely a funny moment.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So
then we enter the storm.
Yep, we enter the storm, and Russell uses the big boy word cumulonimbus, and I'm like, good job, Russell.
It's almost like
beautiful use of that
anemone.
word. We have this big storm, and basically the house gets tossed around, balloons get popped, furniture goes flying, and this is a really a scene where we get to see how much Carl cares about his junk, and I care about my junk to an extent as well. I think we all do, and having your and this is why it was so important to have that first 10 minutes of the movie just be like, all right, we're going to tell you why you need to care about these characters, right? Because we got to see Carl, we got to have that emotional reaction with Carl as like the little, itsy bitsy oval picture of little baby or kid Ellie, was about to topple over. Like, my heart jumped as he was like diving for it, trying to catch it. And same with all the other pictures on the wall. And it's like you had that emotional connection with Carl as to like why you were concerned with his junk. And that's impressive that a movie can make me care about some imaginary person's junk in an animated film. So good on you, Pixar.
I mean, it's memories, right? It's memories, right? It's Carl
Yeah.
clinging on to what's left behind by Ellie, or at least the memories left behind by Ellie. I mean, even in this whole entire movie, he basically calls the house Ellie, as if Ellie is the house, or at least this entity that is with him, where, of course, Ellie has passed, but she's still with him, both in spirit and, I guess, in the manifestation of a house. But yeah, this junk is very much treasured through a lot of the movie until about basically the end, where it's all kind of thrown out onto the plateau, where the house somehow ends up residing again near the end. But I want to hang on at least some of the scenes in this. I know this movie came out in 2009. It's not too bad in terms of the visual effects of the plateaus that they come upon floating to. Very beautiful. Oh goodness, is it Angel Falls? I forget the name of the falls already.
Paradise Falls.
Paradise Falls, beautiful. Looks very much like any falls that you'd see in real life, but of course a little bit less realistic, just because it's an animation from 2009, so it's not the most perfect. But
I would kind of counter that a little bit and say I think Up is the first Pixar film that stands the modern test of time. Like, Toy Story, amazing, groundbreaking. Even Finding Nemo, okay, awesome. It is visually stunning, especially considering what animation looked like in 1995 and 2003 whenever Nemo came out. Like, at the time, those films are insanely impressive. But by today's, MCU standards, it's kind of like, childish and soft, which is, the art style that they went with. But I think that Up was the first one that really, I think, still stands up to time today. And I think in another 5 years, technology will improve and we'll be used to even better graphics. And Up, I don't think in the future will look as good as it does to me right now. But I was watching it last night on my little iPhone 12 mini, about 2 inches away from my face, with the beautiful HDR going on, and I was just enjoying every single frame of the movie. It's also very vibrant and colorful, and yet well rendered, and shadows look great. Like the Incredibles, the original Incredibles, there were some moments that did not look good.
Very
there.
rubbery.
And yeah, very rubbery. Nothing here was rubbery unless it was the latex balloons. But
or maybe Carl's
anyway,
skin.
Yeah,
I mean, it was very leathery at points, but I like the detail on the liver spots that he's got all over his hands. I think those are a nice addition.
Yeah.
But his chin is very much. It reminds me of Clay in some scenes that you see Carl in. It's not as much. I mean, he's very much a stumpy man, so he's not like.
Yes,
you don't really have
that's the point. His whole aesthetic is square.
Yeah,
and Ellie is
not
round and beautiful.
Yeah, she's very round. Which is, I guess, another great... If we're English teachers, or we want to be our inner English teachers, one could argue that he's very squared off and very much to the point and would not yield to any movement of an external force necessarily. But this kid kind of rounds him out a little bit more, makes him a little bit more smoothed out. And a little bit less square and harsh and rough. But
yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe I'm just talking out of my mom's expertise.
Hey, I think you have some expertise here. So we land.
Thank you, Nick. You too.
just moving on from that point. I just laid out the nice compliment and you didn't take it, so I just kept moving. I appreciate you appreciating my compliments there, Mike. Really feeling appreciated here.
I also appreciate the physics being broken again with the two falling off of the house onto the plateau and then somehow holding on to the house as if it's some giant balloon that they can both carry.
Totally.
Even though that Carl is some really old, in his 70s or 80s type of dude. And Russell being the connecting wedge between the hose and Carl and not falling off of a cliff. That's what I appreciate.
That hose has a lot of work to do this whole movie.
Oh
that
my
hose
goodness. Jeez Louise. It is whatever material or whatever brand it is, I want it. Just because it goes through so many different circumstances and it doesn't yield at all. I guess the mount yields. But like the material does not, which I think is wow. But
they should make the space elevator out of that hose. I'm pretty sure it would be durable
just
enough.
That one hose. Have Carl or not Carl? Have Russell try climbing up it. Which we get 2 or 3 instances of this, right? You get
there's so much physical comedy in this movie. It's without going scene by scene, it's kind of hard to get every single piece of physical comedy in there. But yeah, you're right. That scene with Russell trying to go up the rope, that wasn't even something I was thinking about until you mentioned it. Like, yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, I'd say Russell definitely earned a lot of his badges, but I don't think he earned his badge in rope climbing if that's some Boy Scout badge. Or I guess not Boy Scout, it's Wilderness Scout or whatever it is.
Oorah, ka-ka.
Ka-ka, ka-ka,
rar.
rar.
Ka-ka, ka-ka, rar. There you go. Oh my goodness. So I think they landed in the perfect spot. I'm uncontroversial opinion here. Actually, controversial opinion. I said that wrong.
Very convenient opinion.
I think they landed in the right spot and they shouldn't have taken the 3-day journey to move the house. That's the perfect view. Like, that's the money shot, right? Like, all of the little postcards and library books that were ripped right out of a library book They show Paradise Falls from that vantage point. You see Paradise Falls in that same perspective, and it's like, this is where they would put the visitor center for Paradise Falls.
I mean,
because no one wants to actually like live right next door to the loud falls. Like, can you imagine how loud that would be?
well, maybe
Jeez.
that's where the visitor center would be, on the other plateau, or at least the connecting plateau. But from their childhood, Ellie and Carl wanted to live right next to it, with the little drawing that they had with the little taped-on picture of a house on the Paradise Fall picture or drawing or whatever. So I would say,
and I'm saying Ellie and Carl didn't know what they were thinking about when they were kids, because that's obviously not the best place. If you live near a view, you want to live where you're looking at the view, not in the view. You don't want to be in the view.
all I'm saying is,
it was beautiful.
You just
the other
made
way
this
too.
big argument about Carl being a kid at heart, but then you make the argument of, you dummy.
You dummy. I am both a critic and a fan of this movie at the exact same time. That's how you know I'm a professional, because I'm a dude on the internet. Yeah, so they embark on this big long adventure, and they go through this kind of misty rock piley area, and what do we find?
I mean, you're missing out on
Oh, did I miss out?
You're missing out on Kevin, right? Because they're walking around.
I skipped past
Carl's just
Kevin.
like,
I'm so
no
sorry,
rapping or flash dancing, which another funny line out of this movie. But then, yeah, you get Kevin when Russell's being any kid ever on any road trip / hike or anything like that. I need to go to the bathroom. Why did you go to the bathroom a few exits ago? Because I didn't have to, and now I do. Okay. But yeah, and then you get the Snipe, who is Kevin, who is it's some rare bird in the South American province area.
Not just a rare bird, the rare bird.
The rarest bird that Charles Muntz was unable to find for so many. This dude's been in the forest for like 60 or 70 years.
This dude is 110 at the time of having the airship fight at the end of this movie.
Is he? Is he 110?
That, yes. Uh-huh. He was in his mid-30s in the 1930s.
Is he mid-30s? Did
During
they
the
say that he's
newsreel.
in mid-30s? I caught him as like maybe 20s.
Well, all right. He's a world-renowned explorer with ton artifacts in every major museum.
I mean, Elon Musk did a lot
He
of
has
stuff
to
in
at
his
least
20s.
be in his mid-30s.
He could be the early
not
Elon
that
Musk,
much,
right?
We get to hold on. We get to see his entire premium collection in his airship, right? And as he was walking through, Charles Muntz says, this is the best. I have artifacts in every museum in the world: Berlin, Paris, London, and I kept the best for myself." And he had a full little room there. It wasn't just 2 or 3 little things. So if you think he kept maybe 10%, the best 10%, it means he found a lot of stuff. At which point you have to wonder, like, why was anyone questioning him this skeleton for some reason? You know, the Kevin skeleton, after he found like all of these other weird things, and also
Because the
how is he
scientist
just
said
in
that
his
didn't
20s?
match up. That was very much related to some other bird, or it was 2 other birds. But
Yeah,
sometimes get
Scientists
stuff wrong.
are never wrong.
Yeah, they get stuff wrong
No,
sometimes.
you cannot say that.
They get
Mike,
stuff wrong sometimes.
Scientists
because
are
they
perfect.
try to fit something in some theory, but it turns out it's part of another theory, or it fits better with something else. There are many instances in science where that
What?
happens. I'm not saying that science is always wrong. I'm just saying sometimes a hypothesis is not conclusive as a theory / fact. It's the fact that it's been tested and it just wasn't, it didn't fit the bill. Or in this term, I guess, yeah, the bird didn't fit the bill in their eyes.
Oh, I saw the joke there. I didn't miss it.
I tried.
You fit the bill. Good job.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of physical
Anyway.
comedy with Kevin. I enjoyed it. My wife and I
Yes.
watched it, and we forgot about, what was it, Carl tries shooing him away. He's like, "Shoo, bird, shoo," and then Kevin's like, "Gobble, gobble, gobble." Like a turkey or whatever.
Yes, I
I
did.
I just
did
thought
see
that was hilarious. I don't know. It's probably one of my favorite moments in this movie. Is just Kevin going, "Gobble, gobble, gobble."
That'll have to be the thumbnail. Gobble, gobble,
Gobble, gobble, gobble.
gobble.
Gobble, gobble.
Yep. And then Russell has the classic kid conversation of, can we keep it?
No.
And then it has a name already, Kevin, obviously, because it's a girl. Why wouldn't you name it Kevin? I mean, come on. Yep. So
Yep.
Carl's not having any of this. Yep.
But yeah,
Carl's
that's
not
when-
having any of this.
That's when we get to the misty ruined rocks or wherever, where we get to meet Doug, whose name I had the subtitles on because my wife and I like watching movies with subtitles. His name is not D-O-U-G. Mm-hmm. It's literally D-U-G. Doug. Like, he dug something up.
Doug.
I'm just like, it's, I mean, hilarious because dogs dig. They dug up something. Or they dig up something. But I'm just like, why D-U-G? I guess maybe because the other dogs, or maybe Charles Muntz is just like, oh, you dig things up. Your name is Doug or whatever. In which I'm very confused in the fact that Charles Muntz names all his dogs like Greek letters, Roman letters basically, or whatever it is. Or Roman
alpha,
letters.
beta,
numbers.
gamma,
yeah,
theta,
alpha, beta, gamma,
Yeah,
iota,
Greek.
epsilon,
Yep,
all that. But then
epsilon's the
you
shit.
get the golden retriever. He's like, your name is Doug. Like, come on, man. Where's the consistency? I mean, we get that Doug is very goofy.
There is theory about this.
There's another theory?
Yes, Mike. The theories go deep in Up. It's almost never ending, the number of theories. So this theory is not related to the Carl being crazy, so you'll like this. The theory that I'm about to propose here is that actually Carl's Muntz has died a long time ago, and the person who is currently acting as Carl's Muntz killed him. And this guy brought a bunch of dogs to control the other dogs, and this bad guy who's masquerading as Carl's Muntz is actually Carl's age, which fixes all of the 110-year-old versus the 80-year-old action scenes at the last half of this movie. And he brought a bunch of dogs, and all of the alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon dogs, those are all the dogs that he brought. And Doug and some of the other dogs that don't have those names were actually Muntz's dogs.
Can you name any other dog in this movie that doesn't have a Roman Greek letter name and is not Doug?
A Greek letter? I watched a YouTube video on it, so there is at least one. So
There's at least one
super
other.
well fact-checked. Fact-checked. Right there.
Oh my
Snopes,
goodness.
get on this podcast.
There's a short that popped up. We watched this probably.
Yeah,
We both watched this on Disney Plus.
Doug's
Doug's
special mission.
Special mission, which I don't know
Yes.
what happened on your screen, but on mine it was very much like very dark and grainy, which I didn't understand why on my TV it was very dark and grainy for this, but like for the movie it was like all bright and nice, like it was very beautiful. But for Doug's secret adventure, secret mission, or whatever, like it's all grainy and dark and weird. I'm like, this looks gross and weird and nasty. But like,
Interesting.
very strange, like short where it's just like, we need to tell the story of how Doug got where he was. Like,
Yeah.
who cares? He was a dog sniffing around or something like that, and then he was sitting listening for human voices that he heard in the distance, and then they come up to him, and then he runs up to them or whatever. But I don't
Basically,
know.
he's just lucky.
At this point, we're going the same pace of the movie, Nick. Should we speed up?
I know. We need to speed up. I'm sorry.
You are very much... I mean, it's a fantastic movie. We both love this movie, Nick. But we can't hang on every detail. But anyways, as I was
Do we
getting
both love this
to,
movie? Are
Doug's
you sure?
fur is so beautiful in this movie. I'm just going to hang on this a little bit. It very much stands the test of time in terms of like fibers and the coarseness of like a
I'm
golden
so glad you
retriever
brought that
coat.
up, Mike, because
Yeah.
I actually have an entire monologue prepared about Doug's coat.
Okay, here we
and
go,
how
guys.
each of the different shades of gold that are portrayed in Doug's coat correlate to an emotion that Charles Muntz is having at that time. So we
Okay.
start with the light gray.
Okay.
All right, no, I
Light
don't actually
gray,
have anything
but
prepared.
he's a golden retriever.
No, it's in the misty beginnings.
Oh
that
my
we
goodness,
see
but
the
his
light
coat
gray
is not gray. That's his silhouette. You should know about lighting and photography. Come on. Okay. Anyways, we'll go
okay.
quick. There's a lot of funny dialogue. What is it? We meet the rest of the dogs. We also have Carl and Russell meet Charles Muntz eventually, because the dogs basically take him to his blimp. But you get some funny lines like Jiminy Cricket, which is stuff that my grandparents used to say a lot. So that was very much like, oh yeah, this is very much set in their time of mannerisms and what they say. But then you also get things like the cone of shame as well, right? You get comedy for the older crowd of like, oh, that's what my parents used to say, Jiminy Cricket. But then you get comedy for the younger crowd, like the cone of shame, which is very much stuff that me and my wife quote when we have to put the cone of shame on our dog because she's
totally. What else
issues.
Is it called?
I don't know.
I have no idea what that thing is actually called. Our dog had to have one at one point, and I didn't know what it was called besides the cone of shame. So it's the cone of shame. Pixar, you're doing well here. You're coining terms.
Also, the line "squirrel" is something that we quote as well.
Squirrel.
My dog never really was interested in critters when she was young, or when I lived in a different location. But then when I moved here to the Bay and we lived in an apartment for a while, there were squirrels always kind of in the tree in the backyard or behind the fence in the backyard that was very small. And we'd say squirrel, and the dog would immediately run to the slider and start barking and howling and trying to scratch at the squirrel. So this is also
that is so funny.
Another impact that this movie has done on my life is mannerisms like squirrel and cone of shame are not just stuff that I quote. I'm sure many other people like you, Nick, with the cone of shame, or people who have dogs who say squirrel, and then the dog runs for a squirrel or whatever, or looks around trying to find a squirrel. Yeah, stuff that's very iconic in this movie that we kind of spoke a little bit about that in Star Wars in terms of like iconic lines that we find a lot of people quoting, or spoilers or whatever, where the term spoiler kind of came from. In this, it's very much lines such as squirrel or cone of shame or or maybe not Jiminy Cricket, but a bunch of other stuff. Anyways.
There's a ton in there.
So they meet Charles Muntz, right?
Yeah. They meet Charles Muntz and Charles Muntz / maybe not Charles Muntz / impersonator Charles Muntz who actually killed
We'll
Charles
just say
Muntz.
he's Charles Muntz.
All right, fine. I will concede that just for brevity. Charles Muntz figures out that Russell knows who Kevin, and they've seen the bird. And so... yeah, the big fight chase ensues, and I believe that places us directly into the third act.
Also, they insinuate that Charles killed people, or at least this imposter Charles killed people as well.
Yeah,
maybe that's where the theory came from.
That's why people exactly. It's like Charles Muntz, he wouldn't because he's this great big explorer. He wouldn't kill people.
Yeah, but this may have driven him
did.
crazy, right? Because he's trying to find this bird. He's been out in the wild for years trying to find the bird and can't find it. He happens upon other explorers, and he just kills them because he wants to be the greatest explorer. I don't know.
I mean, puzzle me this here, Mike.
I'm not puzzling you.
Tell me how a 1930s explorer, who's mainly known for exploring things, was able to make dog collars that read dogs' thoughts and say them in a human-synthesized voice.
He's an explorer
without
and
touching
inventor.
The outside world since the 1930s.
He's a modern, or not modern. He's a older. He's
Elon?
basically he's Howard Stark. He's basically Howard Stark.
Oh, okay, Howard Stark. All right, fine. I'll buy that one. All right, so Muntz then goes to burn his house because there's some drama going on, and
I'm sorry.
I'm trying to skip.
I somehow spaced out, and I, for some reason, thought that Charles Muntz went all the way back to the city to burn down Carl's house. I'm like, why did he go all the way?
Confirmed. Charles Muntz is actually the guy in the suit trying to buy Carl's house in the beginning. It all loops back. Carl is crazy. This is Pixar confirmed.
Oh my goodness.
Oh boy.
But yeah, you get that moment, the very contentious moment where Carl is faced with the difficult decision of saving his memories and love and all that he knows, or helping out some kid and some bird, and I guess a dog.
Yeah.
And of course he chooses the most logical choice, I'd say, is his house.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is the best choice, honestly. He could have tried
Totally.
saving Kevin, but he
Yeah.
probably would have just let his house burn and lost Kevin. And then,
Mm-hmm.
where's he at then? Right? He has a burnt
Yeah.
house. They wouldn't be able to catch Charles. And they don't have an airship house, I guess. So, I don't know.
True. Also, those balloons defy the laws of physics. And I think we've already said that.
They
because,
like
half
inflate
of
and
them
deflate
popped
multiple
in the
times,
fire,
right? They're
and yet
going
the
through the
thing still
canyon
floats.
and it's like scraping against the floor or whatever. But then
Yeah.
at some point, he throws it, or like I guess they drag it to the Paradise Falls, and then they take,
Yeah.
or Carl takes out all of the furniture, and then it starts flying. I don't know.
Junk.
Okay.
Yeah.
My favorite chair is
Just
not junk.
okay? My favorite chair is junk. It will be junk when I'm done with it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good picture, and that's honestly what got me in the tear zone. Like, obviously, I was in the tear zone in the first 10 minutes, and then, like, we were into the movie, and then I got back into the tear zone after Carl finally drags his house to Paradise Falls. And there's that emptiness and just the sound of the waterfall, and you realize that the purpose of his life is not to protect your memories, right? Like, the purpose is to live a life. And obviously I think that's what Ellie says in the book, you know, thanks for the adventure, go have another one, or something like that.
I think the moment before that actually
and
got
it's
me,
that's
where
yeah, go ahead.
Doug was just trying to be a good dog, and Carl's angry, and he basically just yells at him saying, "Bad dog." It's like, oh no.
Poor dog, come here, buddy.
You can't scream at the dog. People love dogs, and people who don't love dogs, come on, they're good. But yeah, no, I agree with your assessment as well, Nick, with that moment where you just have Carl alone and having this realization that he has to let go. He has to move on. He has to have an adventure, which spurs him into the action. It spurs us into this third act and kind of gives him a second wind in terms of, I guess, how much energy he has. In which, in this whole entire movie, he has so much energy and strength. Okay.
Yeah. I know. I'm funny here. Look out.
You're very funny, Nick.
Yeah, so thank you. Oh, I was thinking of doing stand-up comedy. I was pretty close to doing that full time, but then I figured I'd probably be better talking about my feelings on the internet. It was between one of those two career choices.
Well, don't quit your day job. Oh wait, too late.
Oh wait, oops. Yeah.
Anyways, now we get to the
yeah, so,
the grand orchestra of strings of the theme song of Up, with the house flying up, and you
Yes.
have Carl coming back, and you also get the very funny scene of Russell flying off in a leaf blower, which I think is just the most hilarious thing
Yes.
ever. Of just like
Yes.
some kid sitting on a leaf blower with a whole bunch of balloons tied to him, and somehow gets to the airship. Okay, I mean physics gone, whatever.
Carl's crazy. So we have Russell
crazy, yes.
land on the airship and try to rescue Kevin. Unfortunately, his plan does not work, and he's captured by the evil, possibly Dr. Muntz guy, who is gonna put him. Like, how heartless are you? How heartless are you to tie up a kid on a folding chair and leave him on this gangplank thing that's gonna drop him at 10,000 feet?
None of your
How
mailman
heartless do you have
friends
to be?
can hear you. One of the best lines in this movie as well. Just a dog telling a kid that none of his mailman friends can hear him, when the kid is definitely not a mailman. Or dressed as a mailman. But the dogs think he's a mailman because the dogs just have that in their mind of man in a suit, he's a mailman.
Mailman must attack. And the one who smells of prunes.
The one who smells of prunes. Very much like the son of coal.
Mm-hmm. So we have the heroic scene of Carl swooping in the house and saving the day, using that garden hose once again to its fullest and best extent to somehow get Russell back onto the house and not dead. So good on you there, Carl, for shaving away a good 40 years and being able to slide down the hose with your cane thing and then let go of one side, hold on with one arm, and grab a kid who's falling. That is an adrenaline rush if I've ever seen it.
We also get a Star Wars reference at this point as well. You get the dogs.
Oh, we do?
Yeah. right? Because the dogs come out in
they
their
call in
planes.
the squad.
And it's Gray Leader sighting in, Blue Leader, or was it just all the dogs with their planes? And it's very cockpit view, very much like Episode 4, which of course I didn't get the first time. I didn't understand it, but watching Star Wars recently.
Is this a dog fight? Our mind has been blown, ladies and gentlemen. Poor Mike will no longer be returning on any of the Taylors of podcasts, unfortunately. I guess we'll have to move on without him.
I decided to come back.
Thank you. This would be a really boring show if you left permanently.
Yeah, then we
so
get the
after
old
our
people
dog fight. What happens?
We get old people fight, right?
Yeah.
We get old people.
Old people
canes
fight,
trying
dog
to
fight?
Or I guess, okay, we get a sword versus a cane. Don't know how. Yeah. I don't know. They do the same thing, right? How is he 100? I would say like he's maybe in his 90s because I don't know. How they're both having the same issues. It stands to reason that they're around the same. I don't know. Anyways, we get all the action that has been kind of built up with all the tension in this movie. You get the airship versus the house. You get Carl trying to save the crew of Kevin and Russell. And then you have Doug trying to help out with all his things. And he becomes alpha at one point because he puts the cone of shame, which is actually like some... it looks like a cover for like a radar screen. So that way you can see it when it's lit out. But yeah. Very, very interesting. Again, physics aren't obeyed. You get Carl at one point, who is very old, around his 80s, climbing up a ladder on the side of a blimp, crawling upside down on the side of a blimp. Like, how have you not fallen at this point, old man? But again, it's
plot
Pixar.
armor. Also, he's crazy.
Plot armor, yes, very much. And then it seems like they're about to escape, Nick, right? They're getting in the house.
Yes,
and
they're so close.
And then you get a shotgun. You get Charles Muntz with a shotgun.
And then physics starts to take hold and the balloons start popping. Not the fire, not the race scene through the canyon, not the
3-day journey.
doggies shooting darts at the balloons. Not the 3-day journey, not the fact that there are only 20,000 balloons where there should be 1 million plus balloons. It's the shotgun that puts it all over the edge, and then the house starts losing buoyancy. Ugh. Oh well.
Yeah. So.
Physics.
Yeah.
Yep.
Then we have the characters escaping out of the window with Charles Muntz stuck in the house, jumps out, tries getting them, but then gets tied up on some balloons, and then gets carried down to the ground very peacefully. Falls down, which we don't see. Like, it's very much... I kind of made this comparison, WALL-E, right? I think I mentioned up, where in WALL-E, it doesn't really seem like there's a big main villain besides Hal, or not Hal, Otto. Otto's kind of the main villain, but like it's not really like he's not the main issue necessarily. It's more of just humanity's negligence and kind of WALL-E making people aware of the situation. In this, it's very much like the other side of the coin. We get Charles Muntz, who's very much the antagonist, and we see his demise, and it's like, okay, no more bad guy. The end. We all live peacefully now. Where I guess in WALL-E, it's more of we made it back to Earth and we get to live peacefully. But very interesting. That came back to me when seeing Charles Muntz fall to his death, I guess. Or I guess supposed Charles Muntz. I don't know. I'm not going to go with this theory. It's Charles Muntz.
Thank you. Ah.
No.
Almost had you.
You don't win.
I would say it's probably one of the clearest moments in the film where it's an obvious decision between his stuff or a new adventure. His baggage, his memories, his previous life, or a new adventure. He literally lets his house go. He literally lets his memories go. Yeah. And then I lost it during this moment. I was just like, oh gosh, I've seen this movie like 50 times, but I'm still gonna cry because it's so good. And then the house lands right next to Paradise Falls, almost as convenient as them getting down to Paradise Falls on the first try without a GPM.
Yeah, and somehow the house doesn't explode on impact either. Pretty strong house.
You know,
I guess they
physics.
built them pretty strong
Just
back
enough
in the day.
balloons. He shot enough balloons so that it would sink. They did. It's a very old house. Yep. So then we have the kind of epilogue part of the story, where we get to see Carl pinning on not the helping the elderly badge on little Russell's shirt thingy, but the grape soda pin, which just ties the whole story back in to the first 10 minutes, which just makes me lose it all over again. I wasn't even like 10 seconds done past the last one, and I'm already losing it again. That was a little embarrassing. Glad I watched it in the dark by myself, because it would have been embarrassing if I was doing a live video reaction to it. It was an ugly cry.
That's all right. I had happy tears with the piano and the house on Paradise Falls slowly zooming out. And then we get something again that I like about Pixar, at least at this generation of it, right? We got in Toy Story 2 kind of like the weird outtakes in the credits, and this we kind of get those as well, but more of scrapbook memories. It's the adventures that are carried on with Carl, right? It's not like we end it with Carl on the street with Russell eating some ice cream with a giant airship above him. You get all these cool adventures of them camping and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, yep. That's the movie.
Yeah.
Also, Steve Jobs is still thanked in the credits at the bottom of the movie.
I did not notice that.
With all of these Pixar rewatches, I've been waiting until I see Steve Jobs in the credits. He's always the very first person they want to give a special thanks to. And it warms my heart because Steve was so involved with the production of each one of these movies. He was watching the dailies with the whole rest of the team, but he didn't want any producer credit or anything like that. It's like, okay, thanks, Steve. Anyway, that's all my thoughts. I don't have anything else because we can go for honestly another 2 hours, and if we're not careful, this podcast is going to be longer than the movie. So
try to go with some of our early podcasts, or at least a few podcasts ago. No, I like the color in this movie. It very much was not afraid to be very colorful and exciting with all the visual masterpiece that it is, especially with Kevin's colors as well. He's got a blue head with kind of little peacock type of like greenish hue.
It's a her, but yes.
Fur?
It's
what?
A her.
Her.
You said a Kevin in his hair. I just want to make sure we're not confused on the genders.
No, Kevin is.
I'm just being ornery. I'm being ornery at the moment.
All right, Mr. Ornery.
Boy.
Well,
I'm ornery, so I will end the show.
What would you think if they made Up To?
Up To, I would say they better answer all of these deep, dark questions that everyone's been rumbling around on the internet. Did Carl have a love interest before Ellie?
Oh my goodness!
Is that love interest actually the grandma of Andy from Toy Story? Is the little girl from Inside Out, is her grandma Ellie by adoption? Is this even Pixar's multiverse? I don't know. They need to answer this in Up To, coming to theaters near you very soon, hopefully.
I don't know about that. But at least I've been Mike. You've been Nick.
Okay.
And
I have been Nick.
We're going to sign off now. But thank you very much, everyone, for listening. We appreciate it. We apologize for some of the technical difficulties that we've had recently, but we are always chugging along and doing the best we can. And please let us know if there's any movies that you want us to review in particular. We will definitely do that. But otherwise, we'll see you next week with some more X-Men, I guess.
More X-Men. Which one are we watching?
Oh, yeah. I guess we're doing this whole kind of watch-along type thing.
Days of Future Past, I believe, is on the list.
Yep.
Is that still what we're watching?
Days of Future Past, which I watched right after Up.
Mysterious.
And it's a pretty fun movie. I enjoyed it.
Right.
Anyways,
I will see you next week.
See y'all later.
Have a good one.